Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatarashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatarashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatarashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashutara Shmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashutara Shmar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nugagariya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Patadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachaya Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gora Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Oh, and today is what is it? Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Tvatiya Shubha Tirobhav Titi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Oh, and yeah, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Uddhava-gīta ki jai. Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Ṭhākura ki jai. Shri Gauḍīya Bhāṣya ki jai. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupāda ki jai. Shri Nitāya Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayanitti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratvishe namaha. Gurave gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yang Pravrajantam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedus Tang Sarva Bhutta Hridayang Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatang Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Hyabadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai vasmi, na jivami tvaya vina, eti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamam charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshai Kshiptastakama ditaranga madhye Kripa maitvam sharanam prapana Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Raseshwari Mataji, Haribol. It's been a long time. I know you've been following, not live, but yeah, I hope you're all well and settled. And Madhavi Didi, Dandavat Pranams. Gargarajji, Dandavat Pranams. Rohit Radha Krishnan Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. And also Dandavat Pranams to Indira Mataji, who will be watching later on. Hare Krishna, everybody. All right, so let's begin. I think I'm going to just read everything from the beginning of the chapter to where we are, because this is an important chapter, so it's good to get a review of everything, I think. So, chapter 14 of Uddhava-gīta, Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it? Chapter 20. Okay. So Sri Uddhav said, "My dear lotus-eyed Lord, the Vedic literature, which constitutes your divine orders in terms of positive and negative injunctions, focuses on the good and bad qualities of work. The Vedic literature creates the divisions of Varna and Ashram and describes the good and bad qualities in relation to mixed marriages called Pratiloma and Anuloma, according to time, ingredients, place, and age. The Vedas also reveal the existence of heaven and hell, which are certainly the products of piety and sin. Without differentiating between pious and sinful acts, how can one understand your instructions in the form of Vedic literature, which orders one to act piously and forbids one to act sinfully? Because in the previous chapter, Krishna said that we shouldn't, one should see no difference between Man, I need to find the exact thing that Krishna said because I want to get it right. Let me see. So Krishna, after delineating many good and bad qualities, Krishna ultimately concluded that to maintain a worldly vision of good and bad is itself detrimental, and one must therefore aim to transcend both good and evil. So that's why Uddhav, because Krishna said that, then Uddhav is asking here. So without differentiating between pious and sinful acts, how can one understand your instructions in the form of Vedic literature, which orders one to act piously and forbids one to act sinfully? Without such authorized Vedic instructions, which ultimately award liberation, how could human beings achieve the perfection of life? My dear Lord, Vedic literature in the form of your orders is the best evidence for understanding things beyond our experience, such as liberation, the attainment of the heavenly planets, and knowledge of the ultimate goal of life. For this reason, it is imperative that the forefathers, demigods, and human beings consult the Vedic literature. So, since the Vedic literature is full of showing what is pious and what is sinful and giving instructions on that, and now you're saying to transcend all this, then what? Yeah, that's now he's asking. But it's imperative that we read the Vedic literature, which is full of all these things. My dear Lord, the distinction between piety and sin comes from Vedic knowledge, which emanates from you, and it does not arise by itself. If it is seen that the same Vedas discredit attempts to distinguish between piety and sin, then surely there will be chaos. the Supreme Lord said, "My dear Uddhav, because I desire the welfare for human beings, I created 3 kinds of yoga, or paths of advancement: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Besides these 3, there is no other means of elevation." One second, I just need to, oh, Haribo, Rup Manjari Didi, and Nitai. It's been quite the journey. Oh man, I'm sure. I'd love to hear all about it. Just one second though. I just want to. No, actually, I can continue on. Okay, so Krishna says that there are. Because I desire the ultimate welfare for human beings, I created 3 kinds of yoga: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Besides these 3, there is no other means for elevation. Jnana Yoga is recommended for those who have seen the futility of material existence and thus want to become detached from fruitive activities. Karma Yoga is recommended for those who are fond of sense gratification, failing to understand the great distress that accompanies fruitive work. Somehow or other, if one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, by good fortune, being neither very disgusted nor attached to material life, he should try to achieve perfection by following the path of loving devotion to me. Okay, so this is a very important verse. Yadrichaya matkatado jata shadhas tuya puman na nirvinno nati sakto bhakti yogo syasiddhita. And I remember when I read last time, couple days ago, 3 days ago, I mentioned that I would look for things inside my Gurudev's commentary, or like Śrīla Viśvanātha Chakravartī Ṭhākura explains this in Madhurya Kadambini, and my Gurudev gives also commentary on it. So let's just find it. I didn't look it up beforehand, but I think this is a good chance to go through it. Mat katado. Okay. So let's read a little bit about this verse. Okay. Okay, so Śrīla Viśvanātha Chakravartī Ṭhākura explains how, in the first chapter of Madhurya Kadambini, how Bhakti Devi is self-manifesting. So he says, let me make this bigger so you can read it. I'm not going to read all of this because there's so much, but I'll read some of it. Okay, let's just do this much. 1 second. I'm going to make the text big so you can read it. There. All right, so let's see what he has to say. So Bhakti is Bhagavan's own internal energy. And like the omnipotent Lord, Bhakti also is self-manifesting. She manifests herself. Bhakti manifests herself without relying on any additional cause. Srimad Bhagavatam states, Yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahoituki pratihata. Here, Bhagavad Bhakti to Adhokshaj Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord who is beyond the approach of the material senses, is said to be causeless, ahaituki, and uninterrupted, apratihata. By this, it is evident that she arises autonomously, without any particular cause. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, the verse that we're on right now, chapter 20, verse 8, it is stated, yadrichaya matkatado. Only by the mercy of bhakti, my own internal energy yields taste for narrations about my pastimes and so forth. Only the mercy of bhakti, my own internal energy, yields taste for narrations about my pastimes and so forth. Such statements about the awakening of bhakti being in... Okay, let's read this verse. And the words Mad Bhaktim Chayadritchaya, and that's in verse 8. So a couple verses from where we are. Verse 11, sorry, did I say verse 8? I meant to say two verses after, or 3 verses after. A verse comes up which means the obtainment of bhakti to me is by her own sweet accord, yadricha. Okay, so bhakti is independent. She arises of her own accord. That's what yadricha means. Her icha, yadricha. Such statements about the awakening of bhakti being independent and without any particular cause also appear in numerous verses such as yadrichayavopachita. In these statements from Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth, the word yadricha means acting only in accordance with one's own sweet will. Indeed, the meaning of yadricha found in the dictionary is swayarita, doing as one pleases, uncontrolled, independent, or svecha, of one's own accord. So in these verses, it's referring to bhakti. So bhakti, as bhakti pleases, bhakti completely uncontrolled, bhakti is completely independent of her own accord. You can't make bhakti come, and somebody can't just, bhakti is, she decides where she wants to go. There's no thing that you can do to make her come. She's independent. So let's see my Gurudev's commentary on this. So I'm going to see the translation that my Gurudev gives for this verse. He who is neither overly renounced nor exceedingly attached to this world, and in whom, by the mercy of my inherently autonomous bhakti, faith has been awakened in the narrations of my pastimes and so forth, that person is qualified for bhakti yoga and thus attains perfection through it. And then the verse that will come very soon, that person who remains firmly established in the observance of his own dharma, being sinless even while remaining within his material body, becomes pure. Thereafter, knowledge of Vishuddha Tattva, that is, knowledge of Bhagavat Tattva, and of his own Swarup, his own inherent nature as my servant, awakens in him, and he obtains bhakti to me, which is independent and causeless. Thus, in these verses and others like this, like yadrichaya, like that verse, the word yadricha signifies of her own accord. In other words, bhakti arises of her own independent sweet will. Thus, bhakti has been called causeless, ahaituki. She is self-manifesting, meaning she emerges of her own volition. And then my Gurudev quotes from Śrīla Jiva Goswami's Priti Sandarbha. But anyways, I'm going to just move on a little bit more. Okay, now this is Viśvanātha Chakravartī Ṭhākura again. At times, certain highly enlightened personalities have also interpreted the word yadricha to mean by the awakening of some good fortune. But if yadricha is interpreted in this way, bhakti's cause is to be considered. Is it brought about by virtuous deeds, by shubha karma? Alternatively, is it caused by the absence of such deeds? First, if we accept that good fortune is awakened by virtuous acts, then bhakti would be subservient to shubha karma. This is contradictory to the self-manifesting nature of bhakti. Therefore, that bhakti is awakened by good fortune arising from shubha karma cannot be accepted. Second, if we suppose that the cause of bhakti is good fortune arising from the absence of any virtuous action, then the cause of that good fortune becomes indescribable and unknown. Such good fortune, having no known cause, falls into veritable obscurity. How can that which itself is utterly undetermined be the cause of anything else? In other words, how could good fortune that is undetermined be the cause of bhakti? Third, if we accept that Bhagavan's mercy is in fact the root cause of bhakti, then a natural desire arises to investigate the cause of that mercy, as well as each successive cause. But still, one will be unable to reach a final conclusion. Hence, in such deliberation, the problem of indeterminacy arises. Fourth, if it is accepted that such unconditional or causeless mercy, ahoituki kripa of Bhagavan, is in fact the cause of the awakening of bhakti, then Bhagavan would appear to be beset with the fault of inequity, since bhakti is not observed universally. Bhagavan is impartial, so if his ahoituki kripa is the cause of bhakti, then that causeless mercy ought to have been bestowed upon everyone. Why does he give bhakti to... Why would some people have bhakti and not others? But this is not what we see. Bhakti is not present in everyone. She abides in some and not in others. In that case, it would have to be conceded that Bhagavan's attitude is not equal to all, and thus tainted by the fault of unfairness or favoritism. But it cannot even be conceived that such a fault can exist in Bhagavan. The following question may also arise. Is Bhagavan's meting out punishments to the wicked and protecting his own bhaktas not indicative of inequity? In response, it is said that his doing so does not indicate unfairness. Rather, it is his greatest quality. Among the innumerable qualities present in Bhagavan, his intense affection for his devotees, his bhakta vatsalya, reigns supreme, standing as the monarch of all his qualities. This subject will be analyzed fully in the 8th shower of this sacred text. So that was a bit of a side point. But now, Śrīla Viśvanātha Ṭhākura says, the mercy of the devotees is said to be the cause of bhakti. Okay, so not Bhagavan. Bhagavan isn't the cause of bhakti. It's the mercy of the devotees is said to be the cause of bhakti. The Bhagavad Bhakta's mercy, like the mercy of Bhagavan, is causeless. In this case also, it is improper to find any defect of iniquity or partisanship in the mercy of Bhagavan's devotees. Still, the symptoms of a Madhyam Bhakta, the intermediate devotee, are stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46. He who adopts the mood of love toward the Lord, fellowship toward the devotees of the Lord, mercy toward the ignorant, and neglect toward the antagonists is a Madhyam Bhagavat. According to these symptoms, inequity is seen in the Madhyam Bhakta. These qualities are actually the defining qualities of the Madhyam Bhakta. Shri Bhagavan is conquered by his bhaktas. Therefore, if his mercy follows the mercy of his bhaktas, there is no question of any kind of incongruity. In other words, only by attaining the mercy of the bhakta does one attain the mercy of Bhagavan. Bhakti forever exists within the heart of the bhakta, and therefore, the root cause of the bestowal of the bhakta's mercy upon others is verily the bhakti in his heart. Without bhakti residing within the bhakta, there is no possibility of mercy being awakened for anyone. In this way, the self-manifesting nature of bhakti is established. Hence, in the verse beginning, Ya kinapyati bhagena jata shadosya sevane, whoever by some extreme good fortune has invested with faith in the service to Bhagavan, in that verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhus, the words atibhagena invalidates the assertion that any such good fortune is born of pious action, of Shubha Karma. One should know that the absolute meaning of atibhagena is by the mercy of the bhaktas. Okay, so is that clear? That means that bhakti manifests. Bhakti is completely independent. She's not dependent on Bhagavan. She's not dependent on anybody. She's not dependent on your pious acts. She will choose whose heart she wants to manifest in. And how does bhakti manifest? She manifests because bhakti is present in the heart of the devotees. So from the heart of the devotees, bhakti chooses to manifest in other people through the devotees, through the medium of the devotees. Yeah. All right. So I just thought that was very interesting because this is describing in this verse that we're reading now, what is the meaning of yad yad this word yadrichaya, by her own sweet will. Okay, so let's continue on. And in this translation, he didn't mention that. He didn't really translate yadrichaya. I think he translated yadrichaya as somehow or other. Or maybe by good fortune. Yeah, I think he translated it as by good fortune. So, but we were just we were just reading what is the meaning of that good fortune. All right, so let's continue on. Until one develops detachment from fruitive activities, knowing them to be the source of all miseries, and as long as a taste for hearing and chanting my glories has not awakened, one must act according to the regulative principles prescribed in by the Vedic literature. My dear Uddhav, one who executes his occupational duties and worships the Lord by a performance of sacrifice, while not desiring to enjoy the fruit of results, and who avoids forbidden activities, will not have to spend time in the heavenly or hellish planets. Those who are fixed, and this is the verse that Śrīla Viśvanātha Ṭhākura was quoting, this one also. Those who are fixed in their occupational duties, who have renounced sinful activities, and who have become detached from the desire to enjoy the fruit of their labor, even in this life, that person attains transcendental knowledge, or if fortunate, devotional service unto me. Again, devotional service, again, yadrichaya is being translated, if fortunate, as bhāgya. But what's been explained here is that this means icha. Icha means desire. Yad means whose, or hers, referring to bhakti. See, let's read the translation from here. That person who remains firmly established in the observance of his own dharma, being sinless even while remaining within his material body, becomes pure. Therefore, knowledge of Vishuddha Tattva, that is, knowledge of Bhagavat Tattva and of his own Sarup, the devotee's own inherent nature as my servant, awakens in him, and he obtains bhakti to me, which is independent and causeless. So yadrichaya means independent and causeless. It's by her own will. So she's not dependent on anybody. She's just by her, like that. Okay. Now Krishna continues. The inhabitants of both the hellish and heavenly planets pray to be born in the human form of life on earth, which facilitates the cultivation of transcendental knowledge and devotional service, as opposed to hellish or heavenly existence, which does not provide such a facility. One who is intelligent should not desire promotion to the heavenly planets, nor residence in hell. One should also never become complacent, being satisfied with his human existence, because by such absorption in the bodily conception of life, one fails to attain his own self-interest. Although this human body can award one liberation from material existence, one should know that it is still subject to death. Therefore, one should sincerely endeavor for attaining the perfection of life before death arrives. It is seen that a bird sometimes is forced to leave the tree where it had made its nest when the tree is cut down by heartless men who thus resemble Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Still, being unattached, the bird can find happiness somewhere else. Realizing that one's duration of life is also being cut down by each passing day and night, one should become detached and very afraid of material existence. By endeavoring to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will achieve perfect peace. The human form of life, although very rarely achieved, is automatically awarded to the conditioned soul by the laws of nature. The human body can be compared to a boat, having the spiritual master as the expert helmsman and my instructions as the favorable breezes. One who does not utilize his human birth for crossing over the ocean of material existence is certainly a killer of his own soul. So this is also a very, very, very famous verse. Probably, I don't know, I hear it quoted all the time. Let's say the Sanskrit together. Nrideham adyam sulabam sadurlabam plavam sukalpam gurukarnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvateritam puman bhavabdim natarit saatmaha. So that's a verse that it's good to memorize, definitely. When a yogi becomes disgusted and hopeless after many endeavors for material happiness, and thus completely controls his senses and develops a mood of detachment, he should fix the mind in transcendence without deviation. When one is endeavoring to free himself from material existence, the restless mind should always be brought back under control by adhering to one's prescribed path. Let's just read this commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Ṭhākura here. When one first tries to control his mind, it can be very difficult. Due to past bad habits, the mind may become twice as restless when one tries to restrict it from material enjoyment. The urge for material enjoyment is so strong that the mind easily becomes carried away by such thoughts. In such a situation, one should control the mind by allowing it to have a little gratification in a way that is not contrary to religious principles. So interesting, huh? It's like finding a way to keep the mind peaceful, but not doing something that's going to be... So, I don't know like what the explanation for that is, but my guess that's just coming to my head right now as I'm reading this is, so my mind's restless, like I want to be entertained or something. So then I should read something that is, maybe when my mind's restless, I shouldn't force myself to read the Sandarbhas by Jiva Gosvāmī or something really like dense, some like heavy tattva or something like that. Maybe I just to control my mind and make it like remove this desire for enjoyment or like this desire to be entertained, then I can read Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is just full of lila and it's like really juicy and like that. And that's not contrary to religious principles, but I shouldn't go to YouTube to entertain my mind, because that is contrary to Dharma, wasting time like that. We have to find things that are favorable to bhakti that keep the mind peaceful, not just forcing the mind, trying to pull it away from things like that. That's how I've understood it. Let's see what Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda has to say. He says, because the conditioned soul has a natural tendency to enjoy sense gratification, it is inevitable that his mind will become restless when controlled. The best thing is to divert the functions of the mind from one's personal sense enjoyment to the service of the personality of Godhead while following the regulative principles. In this way, if one cultivates Krishna consciousness, his mind will automatically be controlled. Okay. One should never allow the mind to go outside the quest for spiritual advancement. One should control the mind by engaging the senses and life air in activities of goodness, as directed by one's good intelligence. One who is expert in training wild horses will first allow a horse some freedom. Then, by pulling the reins, he will gradually control the horse. Similarly, one cannot immediately bring the mind under complete control. It must be gradually trained so that it eventually sticks to the path of yoga. I really like this. I'm going to save this verse also. I like it. We have to slowly control the minds, not just all of a sudden cut it off from everything and nope, now it's going to be pure. No. We have to... Until one's mind is firmly fixed in the absolute truth, he should carefully observe the temporary nature of all material objects, from the Mahat Tattva, down to the gross material body. One should observe the progressive functions of creation and the regressive functions of annihilation. When one finally becomes disgusted with the temporary, illusory nature of this material world and thus achieves a state of detachment, his mind, being guided by the instructions of his spiritual master, gradually gives up his false identification with matter. The mind can be fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead by following the path of yoga, beginning with yama, through logic and reasoning under the guidance of a spiritual master, or by worshipping me and meditating upon me. There are no other means than these. So what are the means? The only way the mind can be fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead is by following the path of yoga, bhakti yoga, beginning with yama. Through logic and reasoning under the guidance of a spiritual master. So that means jnana yoga. Or by worshipping me and meditating upon me. So that's bhakti yoga, right? Am I understanding it correctly? Maybe it wasn't specifically referring to those three things. I was just kind of... Anyways, let's continue on because we're running out of time. If a yogi, due to carelessness, performs some abominable activity, he should nullify the sinful reaction simply by continuing his engagement in yoga. He need not undergo severe penance or adopt some other method to purify himself. Bhakti is the most purifying thing, so he should just engage in bhakti, not some other method to purify himself. For an aspiring transcendentalist, the sincere observance of his practice constitutes piety, and the neglect of his spiritual practices constitutes sin. With this understanding of good and evil, one should detach himself from activities of sense gratification by a sincere practice of his discipline. I feel like here Krishna is finally answering the question of Uddhava. Like now it's very clear that what is actually for the devotee, like really for the devotee, what is piety and what is sin? Piety is only the sincere observance of one's practice in bhakti. That is piety. Not opening up hospitals and doing good acts like that. One may do good acts like that, but it should be in connection with bhakti. It should be like, dovetailed in bhakti. So like if you're giving out food to the poor, it should be prasad, right? But anyway, so anything that's directly related to bhakti, and especially the direct activities of bhakti, that is piety. And the neglect of spiritual practices constitutes sin. When we're not engaged in bhakti, that for us, for devotees, is considered sin. So with this understanding of good and evil, one should detach himself from the activities of sense gratification by sincere practice of his discipline. That's what it actually means to transcend good and evil acts, as Krishna says in the previous chapter. Okay, so now we will continue on from this verse. This is a very commonly quoted verse. Jatta Shraddha Matkatasu. So let me just check I haven't looked at the comments for a while. Haribo, Ganga Mataji, and Champak Didi. Oh, Champak Didi, this is where we're finishing the chapter 20 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. What we were reading the day before yesterday. Okay. Jata Shraddha Matkatasu Nirvina Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukatmakan Kaman Parityagepya Nishvara Tato Bhajetamam Prita Shraddhalur Dridhanishchaya Jushamanaschatan Kaman Dukho Darkangschagarhayan. This is a very commonly quoted. Both these verses are very commonly quoted, but also good to memorize. I don't have them memorized, but I'm I see them everywhere. I should try to memorize it myself. Having awakened his faith in the narrations of my glories, understanding the futility of all material activities, and knowing that sense gratification ultimately leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all kinds of sensual diversions, my devotee should remain satisfied and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in a material enjoyment, my devotee knows that such activity simply leads to a miserable result, and so he sincerely repents such activities. Wow, I really like this. Let's read Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura's Sārārtha-darśinī. Here the Lord describes the primary characteristic of devotional service. A devotee naturally becomes indifferent to worldly activities and Vedic prescriptions because he knows that these will ultimately award him distress. He knows that material desires are sources of all miseries. If a devotee, despite understanding this, is unable to completely renounce activities of sense gratification, he should still engage in the service of the Supreme Lord with firm determination. He should not become depressed, thinking that his devotional service is inadequate. A devotee thinks, even if I meet with so many impediments, and even though I am full of offenses, I will never for a moment give up the service of the Lord. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are useless, and so I will never accept these as my paths. I am still very attached to the objects of this world, and I know that this will only bring me misery. I must go on in this way and simply hope that for that day when the Lord will become merciful towards me. Even if, due to material sentiment, a devotee associates with his wife and children and thus indulges in sense gratification, he thinks, alas, this material enjoyment creates many anarthas because it is opposed to my advancement in the Lord's devotional service. Although I had promised many times to give up this material enjoyment, I still indulge in sense gratification from time to time. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. By hearing discussions of the Supreme Lord's glories, one is liberated from the desire to enjoy the fruits of karma. Only those who are faithfully engaged in hearing and chanting the holy names of the Supreme Lord can understand that desires for material enjoyment are the causes of distress. When, even after trying to give up such distressful activities, devotees fail to completely do so, they should faithfully go on serving the Supreme Lord with determination. Devotees condemn the miserable condition that arises from material activities, and while trying to give up such bad association, they engage in the service of the Supreme Lord with determination. There is actually nothing inauspicious in the devotional service of the Lord. Occasional difficulties experienced by a devotee are due to his previous material activities. On the other hand, the endeavor for sense gratification is completely inauspicious. Thus, sense gratification and devotional service are directly opposed to each other. In all circumstances, one should therefore remain the Lord's sincere servant, always believing in his mercy. Then one will certainly go back home, back to Godhead. Proktena bhakti yogena bhajato masakrin mune kama hridaya nashyanti sarve mayi hridi sthite. When one constantly engages in my service as described by me, his heart becomes firmly fixed in me, so that all material desires that may have been present in his heart are vanquished without separate endeavor. Sārārtha-darśinī. One may question, do not the devotees of the Lord suffer material miseries just like other people? The answer is given in this verse. Definitely not. The material desires that are present within the heart of a devotee are gradually destroyed as they go on faithfully hearing the glories of the Lord and engaging in his devotional service. A devotee of the Lord situates Sri Krishna on a beautiful throne within his heart, and there offers the Lord constant service. Just as the rising sun gradually eliminates all traces of darkness, the Lord's presence within the heart causes all material desires there to weaken and eventually disappear. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The senses are continuously engaged according to the proclivities of the mind, so that material desires enter the mind, one after another. Those who are devotees 24 hours a day engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing and chanting his glories with transcendental faith will find that such material desires gradually diminish. Instead of trying to enjoy independently, the devotees are convinced that the Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and all others are meant to partake in his enjoyment. Oh, this is another very famous verse. Wow, this chapter is just full of very prominent verses. Vedhyate hridaya grantesh chedyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani mayi drishte kilatmani. The knot in the heart is cut asunder. All misgivings are slashed to pieces, and the chain of action and reaction is stopped when I am understood to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sārārtha-darśinī. The knot created when one's heart is bound to illusion by false identification with the material body is cut to pieces when one attains the stages of nishta aruchi without separate endeavor. Engagement in devotional service quickly eliminates all material desires within the heart, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. The word karmani in this verse refers to sinful reactions that have not yet fructified. In this regard, the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Purva 15, states, Bhaktir asya bhajanam tad iha mutropadi nairasyena mushmin mana kalpanam etad eva naishkarmyam. Sorry. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord that is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Being devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme Lord. This is the actual purpose of Naishkarmya. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When one understands the Supreme Absolute Truth to be the ultimate shelter of everyone, one's desire for enjoying the fruits of karma will gradually diminish. By full engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, the knot of false ego within the heart is destroyed, and all doubts are removed. The Supreme Lord is the shelter of all kinds of ras. Indeed, he is the personification of all transcendental mellows. By remaining satisfied by the pleasure of engaging in devotional service, one can give up the desire for mundane enjoyment and mental speculation. Tasman mar bhakti yuktasya yogino vai madatmana na jnanam na cha vairagyam praya shreyo bhaved iha. I haven't checked the comments in a while. Okay, everything looks good. What? It says that I have 154 people watching in the Daily Bhagavatam WhatsApp Facebook group. That doesn't make sense. That is so weird. I wonder if I'm getting spammed or something like that. That is just so bizarre. I've never seen this before. 161 viewers. Okay, anyways, I'll have to check that out afterwards. Tasman mar bhakti yuktasya. Okay, sorry. For one who has fixed his mind upon me, being constantly engaged in my devotional service, mere renunciation and the cultivation of knowledge are not considered means for attaining perfection. Sārārtha-darśinī. Devotional service has the potency to destroy the knots of false ego within the heart without one's taking help from any other process. Therefore, the devotees of the Lord are not interested in cultivating knowledge or practicing renunciation outside the purview of devotional service. Devotional service is the only all-auspicious path. whereas the cultivation of knowledge and dry renunciation are of no value without connection to devotional service. By chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, a devotee automatically realizes all knowledge, and as the devotee's attachment to the Lord increases, he automatically gives up attachment for the inferior material nature. Knowledge and renunciation are products of the modes of goodness, whereas devotional service is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. If one engages in devotional service, then it is a fault to separately cultivate knowledge and practice renunciation. Just as attachment and envy are byproducts of ignorance, knowledge and renunciation are naturally attained for one who is engaged in devotional service. Because knowledge of the absolute truth and renunciation of material enjoyment are concomitant factors of devotional service, devotees become knowledgeable and detached without separate endeavor. This is confirmed elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.42. Bhakti pareshanu bhavo viraktir anyatra chaisa trika ekakala prapadyamanasya yatashnatasyus tushti pushtikshur apayo nughasam. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. How do we remove hunger? How do we nourish ourselves and remove hunger? Just by eating. You don't need to do something separately to get relief from hunger. You just eat. So we don't need to do anything else to become detached from material activities, from mundane desires and all this, and get knowledge. We just engage in bhakti in it. That's how you do it. Otherwise, I'm just thinking of this example here. It's like if you're trying to give yourself relief from hunger by like doing a UV drip thing, or something like that. That's ridiculous when you could just eat. If you're not sick, anyways, that's probably a bad example. Okay, by the use of the word praya, and generally in this verse, it appears that in some cases, in the primary state of Shanta Bhakti, it is not auspicious to accept the processes of cultivation of knowledge and renunciation. Still, devotional service ensures liberation without any impediment. This is the opinion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Okay, now, Gauḍīya Bhāṣya by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. One can never achieve real benefits simply by the cultivation of knowledge while remaining indifferent to the service of the Supreme Lord. When one is fully devoted to the Supreme Lord, he is on the platform of complete auspiciousness. There is no possibility for attaining factual benefit as long as the impersonal conception of the absolute truth remains prominent. Simply by the execution of pure devotional service, genuine knowledge and proper renunciation are obtained. The constitutional duty of the spirit soul is to engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Transcendental knowledge and factual renunciation are fully manifest in those who are continuously engaged in the service of the Lord. Yat karma bhir yat tapasa jnana vairagyatascha yogena dana dharmena shreyo bhir itarayar api sarvam mar bhakti yogena mar bhakto labhatenjasa swargapavargamadhama katanchirya divanchati. These verses also look familiar, but yeah, I don't know, let's see. Whatever can be obtained by other processes of elevation that are recommended in the scriptures can be easily achieved by my devotees. If my devotee desires liberation from material existence or residence in the heavenly planets, he achieves these without difficulty. Sārārtha-darśinī. A question may be raised. If a devotee who is faithfully engaged in the Lord's devotional service, and thus has no interest in performing karma or gyan, and yet desires to go to heaven or attain liberation from material existence, what will he achieve? The reply is given in these two verses. By following other auspicious paths, such as traveling to holy places of pilgrimage, one can attain Salokya Mukti, or residence in the eternal abode of the Supreme Lord. Whatever can be gained by the various paths of perfection is easily achieved by devotees by means of their execution of devotional service. If a devotee so desires, he can easily attain worldly happiness, purification of the heart, liberation, or even residence in the abode of the Supreme Lord on the strength of his devotional service. That's such an interesting. Let's read the Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Whatever can be obtained as a result of performing fruitive activities, performing severe austerities, cultivation of knowledge, renunciation of the objects of the senses, giving in charity, performing pious activities, and controlling the senses, are effortlessly obtained by the devotees of the Supreme Lord due to the strength of their devotional service. The devotees of the Lord can easily attain the heavenly planets, relief from material distress, the 5 kinds of liberation such as Shashti, and residence in Vaikuntha. Oh my god, it's 8:30. How much more is left? Oh, there's still a bit more left. Oh man, I took too long with the... anyhow. Okay, let's read one more verse. Nairapeksham parang prahur nishreyasam analpakam. Oops, did I skip this verse? Yeah, I did. Okay. Na kinchit sadavo dhira bhakta hekantino mama vanchantyapi maya dattam kaivalyam apunarbhavam. Even if I offer liberation from the vicious cycle of repeated birth and death to those pure devotees who are very sober, they do not accept it. Sārārtha-darśinī. Here the word katanchit, somehow or other, of the previous verse is being explained. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. In this verse, the words ekantino mama indicate that those who are pure devotees of the Lord are 100% engaged in the devotional service of the Lord with no separate interest. Even if the Lord offers liberation to such devotees, they do not accept it. The pure devotee is assured of going back home, back to Godhead, to reside with the Lord eternally. And so for him, mere liberation without devotional service is not at all appealing. One who engages in the devotional service of the Lord while maintaining a desire for liberation or heavenly enjoyment cannot be considered a pure devotee. The constitutional position of the living entity is that he is the eternal servant of the Lord, and that is being described herein. Okay, so I don't want to go too much overtime today. We will finish this the day after tomorrow. We'll just quickly finish this chapter and then... Sorry about that. I really wanted to finish this chapter today. But, okay. Let's just read the translations to these verses, just so that we've finished at least reading the translation for the verses, and then we'll read the commentary tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, I mean. The perfection of liberation is achieved when one is completely detached from matter. A devotee who has no personal ambition is eligible for engaging in my loving devotional service. My unalloyed devotees, who are without material attachment, who treat all living entities equally, and who have attained me, who am beyond the reach of material intelligence, are not subject to material piety and impiety. Those who follow the path of devotional service as instructed by me attain freedom from illusion, and upon reaching my personal abode, they perfectly understand the absolute truth. So we'll hear the commentary on these verses day after tomorrow, because tomorrow, well, let's see if I can do this, but I have to, sorry, I just got spaced out for a second, because I got distracted by, what the heck? There's 143 people watching? I can't believe that. Anyhow. What am I saying? Oh yeah, so tomorrow, right now, right after I finish reading, I'm going to be going to Mayapur, then I'm going for a program in Godrum, and then I'm going to spend the night in Mayapur, and then first thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to Kolkata. I'm going to go on a bunch of darshans there with my parents, Srila Prabhupada's birthplace, to number 1 Ultadanga Junction Road, to Pak Bazaar Gauḍīya Math. Like, we're going to go a bunch of places, and then in the evening time, my parents are going to go to the airport and go back to America. And so then I'm going to stay in Kolkata for a week, at least a week, to stay with this brahmachari, Subal Saka brahmachari, really sweet brahmachari, and he's really sad right now, so I'm going to give him some support. So that's my plan. So I'm going to be in the car tomorrow early morning. I won't be able to read. But also, every Sunday, I made a plan to read Chaitanya Bhagavat. And so I'm hoping, today's going to be a very busy day. I'm hoping somehow in the day I'll be able to pre-record a video and make that, of Chaitanya Bhagavat, the first chapter, and make that go live tomorrow morning during the normal time, like now. So hopefully I can do it. All right, everybody. So now I'm going to sing the Keshav Ashtakam by Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī. Actually, no, I'll do Jaidvani, and then if you need to go, you can go. And those who want to stay, you can sing Keshav Ashtakam with me. All right. Jai Shishi, and Haribol Narayani Mataji, Hare Krishna, and Shah Sharma ji, Hare Krishna. Yes, so many key verses. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Juki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Juki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar, Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupāda Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishmar, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosai Prabhupāda Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Gorkshodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Nityalla Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Rupa No Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopala Bhattadasha Guna Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai, Shri Amuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Uddhava-gīta Ki Jai, Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī Vritti Ki Jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashachar Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Oh, and also today is a very special day. It is the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. And I wasn't able to read from it today, but yeah, if anybody has a chance, go to vcvani.com. I'm just going to put it up on the screen here so you can see the link. vcvani.com. And there you'll hear, you'll see a glorification of Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Goswami Maharaj about Srila Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj there. Good to read today if you can. And I just checked on the Daily Bhagavatam Facebook group, and indeed there are 161 people watching there. And see, there's all these likes from all these people. So everybody who's watching here look at all these people. This is amazing. Yeah, all of you watching on Daily Bhagavatam, how did you find this? I'm very curious to know. Yeah, so I hope you continue joining these Bhagavatam readings every day. I've been doing it every day for I don't know how long now, maybe 2.5 years or something, or 3 years, 3 years I think, almost 3 years. And soon we will be finishing Srimad Bhagavatam, and then I'm going to continue reading from Chaitanya Bhagavatam, which is very juicy. This one right here, Shri Chaitanya Bhagavatam. So, all right, so now let's sing the Keshav Ashtakam by Srila Rupa Goswami. Also, I'm just letting you know, if you would like to watch these Bhagavatam readings on my YouTube channel, you can just go, let me just find the link. Here. Let's see, here's the YouTube link. There, I'm just gonna put the, I'm just gonna take the opportunity while I have it to, here, I'm putting it in the comments here. If you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel, then I give the Srimad Bhagavatam readings every there also. You can just click there and subscribe, and yeah, you'll get daily reading. All right, so now let's sing Shri Keshav Ashtakam. Just getting my mridanga, 1 second. And I'm being a little bit shameless here, but while I have everybody's attention also, I have a website, vineofdevotion.com, and there I post articles, like I write, it's mostly my own writing there, but I also sometimes post special, like my favorite articles from our acharyas, and I'll post updates about what new programs we're starting and stuff. So if you'd like to follow along what I'm doing, yeah, all the things that I'm sharing, then you can go to vineofdevotion.com and you can subscribe there. Yeah. All right, let's do Keshav Ashtakam by Srila Rupa Goswami. And we have how many more days? Keshav Vrat lasts for another 9 days. We've been singing this every day for a month. Well, and so, yeah. For Keshav Vrat. Just checking in the comments. All right. Let's continue on. What am I doing? There. Now, this is in the meter called Prithvi. Nava Priyaka Manjari Rachita Karnapura Shriyam Venedratara Malati Kalita Shekare Nojvalam Darojvasita Yutika Gratita Valgovai Kakshakam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Vishangi Manikastane Pranata Shringi Pingekshane Mridanga Mukhi Dhumale Shabalihamsi Vamshi Priye Iti Sasurabhikulam Taralamavayantam Muda Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Ghana Pranaya Meduran Madhura Narma Goshti Kala Vilasa Vilayan Milar Vivida Vesha Vidyotina Sakhina Kila Saraya Pati Shuhasayantam Gida Praje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Shramambhukanikavali Dharavilidagandhantaram Samudagiri Likita Charupantram Kuram Udancharali Mandali Dyuti Vidam Bivakralakam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Nibadhanavatarnaka Vali Vilotkanot Kantaya Ṭhākura Putan Chalar Alugobhir Bhuvan Bindatim Kale Nadhavala Ghatam Lagu Nirvartayantam Puro Praje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Padankatati birvaram Virachayantam advashiyam Chalataralanaichiki Nichaya dhuli dhumra srajam Amarulla hari chanchali Krita dukula churanchalam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Vilasa Murali Kala Dvani Birullasan Manasa Kshanara-kila Pallavi Polakayantamantar Grihe Mohor Vidatatang Hridi Pramutitancha Goshteshwarim Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinabdeshata Keshavam Upetapati Sundari Tati Virabhirabhyarchitam Smitang Kurakaram Bitar Natarapanga Bhangi Shatai Stanastavaka Sanchara Nayana Chanchari Kanchalam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Idam Nikila Ballavi Kula Mahotsavolasana Kramena Kila Yapuman Patati Shushtupadyashtakam Tamojvala Diyang Sada Nijapadara Vindadvaye Ratim Dadada Chanchalam Sukayatar Vishaka Saka Bhaje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipinadeshata Keshavam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipinadeshata Keshavam Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipinadeshata Keshavam. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare. Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav-dev Jaya Keshav. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna. Jaya Sachinandan Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachinandan Gaura Hari Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Guru. Jaya Prabhupāda Jaya Prabhupāda Jaya Prabhupāda Jaya. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in this reading. And as I said, I won't be going live tomorrow. I'll try to pre-record a video and make the video go live so that you can still get something at this time, because I tried it every day start at this time, 7:30 a.m. India time. And then the day after tomorrow, we will continue reading on from this chapter. We'll finish this chapter and then we'll continue the next chapter, chapter 21 in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto. All right, thank you so much for joining, and see you all tomorrow, or day after tomorrow. Oh, and thank you, Rohit Radhakrishnan Prabhu, for sharing the link. Like I mentioned before, this is the link to my website, vineofdevotion.com, and there you can find all the programs that I'm doing. And that's just like if you want to follow along with any of these things, then you can visit that website. And also my YouTube channel. This video right now is going live on YouTube as well. So that's my YouTube channel, youtube.com @Madhu Das. All right, Hare Krishna, everybody. Jai Shri Radhe.